I'm sure by now most of you have seen news coverage and footage of all of those guys who escaped from a New Orleans prison. And let me tell you how I think these guys were able to successfully navigate and how that correlates to one of the major reasons why I stopped working in corrections. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones, and I spent almost 5 years working in corrections. There are, and I've worked in corrections only in California, so I can't speak to New Orleans specifically, but I can speak to what it's like to work inside of a prison. And I'm going to share with you some of the reasons why I think this happened. One, staff was in on it with them, and so one of the things that happens with inmates, and inmates are just inmates, are going to do what they do, which is manipulate people. And something that is very dangerous is staff over familiarity, which is where staff will build an inappropriate relationship with an inmate. And that's how inmates are able to turn staff out, get them to bring in phones, drugs, have sex with them, etc., etc. The second thing I think could have maybe led to this would have been an administrator. One of the reasons why I left my prison, specifically here in California, it has to do with administration and government. So government and prison usually go together. So I think this is a government issue. As well as the administrators issue, and a lot of times administrators will accept more people than staff can cover for. So basically, you want to have a fair amount of inmate to staff ratio, right? So you want to have a fair amount of officers and things like that that can cover the guys that you're bringing in. You also, all inmates are not created equal. You have some that are there's levels to dangers that you guys don't even know. So you have like security threat groups, you have designated versus non-designated, gangs, all this other kind of stuff. And some of these guys, um, you know, being in a supermax versus minimum security and so on and so forth. So sometimes what will happen is administration will accept, guys that need to be in a super maximum security prison at like a medium security prison. And before you know it, they will allow so many and so forth. And that usually happens when people running the prisons want to make a name for themselves. They're trying to climb up the ranks. And so you're actually putting staff in danger, which is one of the reasons why I left. The prison facility is because a lot of people don't realize that everyday people like myself. I worked as a psychologist in a prison, and so when you're working as a psychologist, you don't really carry a weapon. The only thing we have is a body alarm and a whistle. And so we count on, corrections officers to be able to come and get there within a certain amount of time, but a lot can happen in a few seconds. And so it's a very dangerous job just based on that alone. But the other thing is, when you have people that, like in California, when I left, they were letting guys from like super maximum prisons, such as like Pelican Bay and things like that, where these guys were locked down for 23 hours a day, which they need to be because that's how dangerous these guys are. You give these guys 5 minutes, bad things are going to happen, and that's exactly what would happen. So you have guys that are coming from a supermax to a minimum or medium security prison. What do you think is going to happen? Things are going to go badly very quickly, especially if you don't have the manpower to cover that. And so prisoners are very quickly going to take over, just because it's so unsafe to tell them no or to try to contain them. They're very quickly going to rise to power, and they don't give a damn who you are, what you say. They are going to do what they are going to do, and you're going to help them or you're going to get got, right? And so that's kind of what I was dealing with when I left corrections. You got these guys, all these guys coming in from Pelican Bay and things like that have been locked down, but they go back to doing what they do best, and it becomes extremely dangerous really quickly. And no job is worth that, in my opinion. And so I don't know if that's what led to this, in this situation. But also, the third thing, that I could say maybe led to this was that, again, inadequate staffing, and or leadership, or corruption in staffing and leadership. And whenever you have corrupt staff, that is directly a reflection of leadership. So if you have staff that's all corrupt, they don't care, they're doing whatever, they're doing the gladiator wars and things like that, that is directly a sign, a reflection on leadership. And leadership can get away with that if government is corrupt or government is not adequately supervising what's going on in the prison system there. And so things could get very out of hand very quickly. I don't think you guys understand the level of danger. I mean, it's bad when one inmate escapes, but if you've got 10 inmates that escapes, everybody in that entire prison, that everyone who works there, the leadership that works there, that is all bad. I would be surprised if whoever's supervising that prison still has a job. I would be very surprised. That is something that is a major security threat to society, and the fact that they haven't been found. What do you think they're doing? And not only that, 10 guys. So that means everyone at the prison knew about it. This wasn't even a secret. So this is something that took a good amount of, planning, and also a lot of people helped with this. So this is bad for a number of reasons, and that whole institution needs to be looked at, as well as any other institute, probably in that state, from a government perspective, because that means that there's some serious security threats going on. And so you always have to make sure that everyone within the system is up to par. You also would need to assess other inmates in that facility, right, that maybe didn't do that, because if these people are able to escape like that, what do you think that means for other predatory behaviors that were going on within that facility? What do you think that means in terms of how staffing was, what staff was doing within the facility like that? So it's all bad, again, for a number of reasons. And whenever I hear liberals say, "Oh, prisoners don't need to be locked down," and all this other kind of stuff, you guys are doing whatever to inmates and their people, I always say this to you: go work in one and see what you have to say about that. There's a lot of, especially here in California, there's a lot of liberties, there's a lot of freedoms that people get. And I can do a more of an in-depth dive if you guys want it, but there's a lot that inmates get that you guys don't know. And so there's a lot of people that scream from the rooftops. But I also say this to you: go work in one, but I also say, well, let them come and live as your next door neighbor. These people that you want to be free so bad, and let them come and work with you at your job. Let them come and be around your children, and let's see what you have to say. Because when stuff like this happens, it is a reminder, and I can't stress this enough, of just how dangerous people can be. And I get on here and I talk about narcissism and antisocial behaviors, and even borderline behaviors to a certain degree, but that's light work compared to some of the stuff that you see. There's levels to psychopathy and sociopathy. As I've always told you guys, these guys that escaped are an extreme level, and the fact that they're able to do that and they're still gone, they haven't all been apprehended, that says a lot, and that's very scary. And I feel very horribly for anyone of the general public that encounters guys like this in the outside world. People are only in prison for the crimes they got caught for and sentenced for. They're not always in prison for all of the things they do. Remember that.